When life gets unpredictable, preparation matters. In medicine, it's all about staying alert, ready for whatever comes through the door. On the road, it's no different. That's why Volvo designs vehicles to help anticipate risk, reduce harm, and protect lives. The Volvo XC90's advanced safety systems inspire confident decisions wherever the road takes you. The Volvo XC90, for life. Proud sponsor of the Pit Podcast. Learn more at volvocars.ca/safety.
Live, local, and up to the minute. Elias Mackos on CJAD 800.
Welcome back. David Heurtel in for Elias. He is in studio. The Quebec Solidaire leader, Gabriel Nadeau-Dubois. Gabriel, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So let's start with this new slogan you announced yesterday. Yeah. Changer d'air, and there's a little play on words there, right?
In English, we could say clear the air.
Clear the air. Okay, because in French, there's also era, right? There's era, and because you write it in terms of era, but it also means air.
Yep.
So, but in English, you would say clear the air.
Yeah, on October 3rd, I think it's time to clear the air in Quebec.
So tell us why.
Well, I think we won't solve the problems of the Quebec of 2022 with solutions that belong in the 90s. We won't solve the climate crisis with half measures. We won't solve the housing crisis by blindly trusting the free market, and we won't solve the cost of living crisis just by sending checks every 6 months or, just only before the elections. So we need, I think, new people in power in Quebec. We need new ideas. We need a new approach. That's what I'm going to tell to Quebecers in the next weeks. The campaign is coming up.
Yeah.
And
the campaign seems to be already begun.
Well,
not officially, but
I would like for it to be officially begun. I can't wait for it to begin. I am optimistic about what we are going to, put forward for Quebecers. I'm very proud of the team that we are putting forward at Quebec Solidaire. Mano and me have worked very hard in the last year and a half to build what I think is the best candidates team of the history of Quebec Solidaire. We've recruited people from all horizons, all generations, all origins. I'm very, very proud of the team we have, and I think Quebec Solidaire is ready to get to the next step. I think we've shown that we were an efficient opposition to Mr. Legault government. Now we are ready for the next step.
It's true. During the last 4 years, you established Quebec Solidaire. Even though in terms of seats, the Liberals were the official opposition, a lot of observers, a lot of people, just regular people, were saying, no, actually, Gabriel Nadeau-Dubois and Quebec Solidaire are the opposition.
And I think it's also true on the issues. Who challenged François Legault on the environment? Who challenged François Legault on the housing crisis? Who challenged François Legault on the cost of living crisis? I think on those three fronts, Quebec Solidaire we were the best opposition, and now we're ready for the next step. And I'm going to go meet Quebecers and tell them we're not only a good opposition, we can be also a good government.
Let's talk about the environment for a second, because it's been in the news for the last few weeks with the Horn Foundry, the report of 89 companies across Quebec being allowed to emit over approved regulations, the mining issue, because Quebec is becoming more and more attractive for rare earth and special minerals, strategic minerals like lithium, for example, graphite. So in the case of the Horn Foundry, when you have a company, Gabriel, and you know this, the question is about the balancing environment, climate change, and economic development. So Rouyn-Noranda, which is held by a Quebec Solidaire member, you have this company, over 650 jobs, millions of dollars in economic development. Now, on one hand, and the other hand, of course, the whole thing about arsenic, the levels being way over what public health is recommending, and cancer risks. And you have Minister Fitzgibbon, the economic development minister, saying, well, nobody's going to die, no big deal. But the real question is, a Quebec Solidaire government, how do you deal with that? Do you just shut down the foundry?
No. This is not the solution because, first of all, that smelter is one of the most profitable operations of the Glencore Corporation, which is a multinational corporation that does a lot of money. Just for our listeners to understand who we're dealing with here, Glencore has sent to its actionnaire, to its shareholders, over approximately $9 billion
in dividends
since the beginning of this year of 2022. So we're talking about here a company that has the means to invest, to modernize its installations. So, and it's one of the most profitable operations of Glencore. So it won't shut down. What we need to do as a government, and I think more of that as a society, is to say in Quebec there are laws that protect the health of people, and we have set a norm in terms of what is the acceptable level of arsenic, which is a very dangerous thing in the air. For the health of people, and especially of children, which are a lot more vulnerable to those emissions. That norm is of 3 nanograms. In Quebec Solidaire, we have said clearly we would give 4 years to the smelter to conform to that norm. Similar operations around the world are able to conform to similar norms of arsenic. It is possible for Glencore to reach it if we give them a few years. That would be our plan. And in order to get there, we would give 1 year to the smelter to reach an intermediary target, which is of 15 nanogram, to protect the health of pregnant women and of babies. Do you know that in this neighborhood, around this business, children are actually born smaller than in the rest of Quebec? The espérance de vie, the life expectancy of people living in that neighborhood is 5 years under the Quebec average. We're talking about young children having their cognitive development impaired by Glencore. We are in 2022.
No, I understand.
We are in a rich and developed economy. We should not make a compromise on the health of children.
All right, moving on. I got to move on to now. What I found funny yesterday is that there wasn't a lot of mention about separation and sovereignty. While that's still in your platform, isn't it? That's not. It's you're still for Quebec Solidaire is for separation, the independence of Quebec. So many listeners, CJAD listeners, and you know this, have written, have said, if it were only for the fact that Quebec Solidaire could let go of that, I would vote for Quebec Solidaire. What do you say to the English-speaking community, to our listeners, about that? Because a lot of people are interested in the Quebec Solidaire platform. They like what you have to say. But they have a clear issue on separation. But yesterday, you didn't put it at the forefront. Is that going to be at the forefront of your campaign this fall?
It's part of our project, because I'm going to give what I think is a very good example for our listeners. If we want to build a new political pact, a new society, a new system with our brothers and sisters of the First Nations communities in Quebec and of the Inuit Nation, we need to be able to create a new constitutional arrangement with them. And I don't think it's possible inside Canada. I think it's much more realistic to think that in terms of building a new country with them. And that's one of the main difference between our project and, let's say, the traditional project of the Parti Québécois, which had the tendency systematically to forget the fact that we share the territory of Quebec with 11 other nations. There are actually 12 nations on the territory of Quebec, not only the Quebec nation. So our project is a project that tries to reinvent our system with the 11 other nations that we share the territory with. I think it's a much more modern and much more promising way to think about and to talk about that project than the old project of the Parti Québécois.
Well, then moving on, because attachment to Canada is also important for the English-speaking community predominantly, and not just because of that, but one of the main reasons is because to protect the minority status. And so you at Quebec Solidaire, you voted for Bill 96. To be fair, you did say that you would make some modifications. You voted for it, but you have still some problems with it. So what are you saying to the English-speaking community about protecting English language, especially in the wake of these Statistics Canada numbers that show that French is in decline in Quebec and the rest of Canada. But again, at the same time, with Bill 96, Bill 21, the English-speaking community has a lot of concerns.
Well, first of all, Bill 21 is not about the English community.
No.
And I have a lot of... I am a Francophone, and I am proudly against that bill. And I'm going to campaign on it. And a lot of Francophones in Quebec, a lot of people in Quebec, whatever the language they speak at home, are against that bill.
Yeah.
I think the separation between church and state is something fundamental in a democratic society. But I don't think, forbidding young women to teach in our schools has something to do with, forbidding them to teach because they wear a religious symbol. I think this has nothing to do with the separation between church and state. So that being said, on Bill 96, we are going to have a very simple message for people in Quebec. We are going to keep what's good in that bill, and we are going to get rid of what's not good in that bill. And there are two main problems with that bill. The first one is that it has completely forgotten the linguistic rights of Indigenous people in Quebec. That is a mistake. And we are going to sit down with Indigenous leaders to make sure their linguistic rights are officially recognized and protected by the government of Quebec. That's the first thing.
Yeah.
The second thing we're going to do is get rid of that infamous 6 months clause that gives 6 months to newcomers in Quebec to learn French. And after that, the public institutions are not supposed to talk to them in another language than French. It is, first of all, completely inapplicable. It is impossible. Talk to teachers in the schools of Parc Extension and tell them that they have to talk French with the parents of their children. It just isn't possible to do so
without religious symbols too.
Well, also. So it is impossible, first of all, and it's a lack of compassion. People have a right to be welcomed in Quebec in a welcoming way. Let me put it that way. And we're going to get rid of that clause. So those are the two main things we're going to do with that bill. And for us, and our position on that issue, I think it's a proof that we are able to talk about French. We are able to be clear that we think French has a right to be protected in Quebec, but that also minority rights and the rights of First Nation communities in Quebec are not negotiable. That's our way to do that. That's been our trademark of politics since 15 years now at Quebec Solidaire, and I'm very proud of it.
Talking politics with Quebec Solidaire leader Gabriel Nadeau-Dubois. So, Gabriel, let's talk about the way the polling's going. I mean, right now, as it stands, when you look at the polling, it doesn't look good. I mean, in terms of the CAQ seemingly way ahead in the national polls, you're even behind the Liberals. What's your response to that? How do you think you'll get things going for October 3rd?
Honestly, I think my secret weapon is my team. I'm very, very, very proud of the team we have assembled with Manon. We have solid candidates all across Quebec. Also in Montreal, we were talking off the air about Arun Boisy, our candidate
in Maurice
Richard, so in the north of the city. In Verdun, we have a very promising young woman who's a specialist in the ecological economy. We have also a very solid candidate in Saint-Henri-Saint-Anne, which is Guillaume Clich-Rivard.
That's Dominique Angla's riding.
That's Dominique Angla's riding, and Guillaume is one of the leaders of the contestation of the terrible policies of the Coalition Avenir Québec on the immigration.
Yes, he's an immigration lawyer.
He's a very well-known immigration lawyer who's fought Simon-Jolin Barrette on its terrible decisions as a Minister of Immigration. So we have a very solid team. I think that's our secret weapon. That's the key of our success. And honestly, I can't wait for the campaign to start. I'm optimistic, and I think campaigns do matter. Campaigns change something. We have things to say. And this morning, we just revealed our slogan, which is Clear the Air. And on the same morning, Mr. Legault revealed its own slogan. And it's a total coincidence. And its slogan is Continuons. Let's continue. We could say business as usual as a synonym.
Well, that's what he wants,
That's what he wants. So I think that's a very, very clear illustration of the choice a lot of Quebecers will have on October 3rd.
So let's talk about other issues. Of course, number one in the minds of everybody, regardless of generation, background, language, cost of living, inflation. What would a Quebec Solidaire government do to help people who are struggling to make both ends meet?
The cost of living crisis is the more urgent crisis that Quebec is facing right now, and people are talking about to me about it every single day in the streets. And our vision is different on that issue from other political parties. We are gonna lower the bills that Quebecers have. For example, there's going to be the schools that are going to start soon.
Yeah.
It's too that bill is too high in Quebec.
You mean school supplies?
School supplies, it is too much for ordinary people to pay. We are going to lower the dentist bill also, which is egregiously high in Quebec. We are going to target also the public transit bill. It is too costly to take the bus or the metro in Montreal. And of course, we're going to target the first bill of every family in Quebec, which is housing. It is the first bill of everyone. So you cannot solve the cost of living crisis without solving the housing crisis. So we're going to make sure that abusive rent increases are illegal in Quebec. We are going to build 50,000 social housing units, eco-energetic social housing units in Quebec. We are going to calm down the speculation that is, that is tearing the housing market in Quebec. We have a very solid plan to solve the housing crisis, and for us, it's one of the keys to fight the cost of living crisis.
And how are you going to pay for all that? Because that's going to be expensive. Everything you just listed is going to cost a lot of money.
Well, first of all, so some of those things are totally costless. For example, making sure that you cannot, in Quebec, increase the rents of your tenants without having to prove that it's a necessary hike.
Yeah.
This costs nothing to the government. It just costs the ink and the paper.
Well, it's going to take bureaucracy. There's going to be challenges anyway.
What we are proposing is to take the Ontario system and put it in Quebec.
Okay. But school supplies.
Well, school supply, yes, it's going to cost some money.
It's money. You're proposing, let's face it, you're proposing a lot of very interesting proposals, but they're going to cost money.
They're going to cost money, and we're going to have a very solid financial plan to fund those promises. And we have also an economic team that I think is the best of our history. We were talking about Aaron Boisy and Maurice Richard. I could talk about Simon Tremblay-Pépin, our candidate in Pointe-aux-Trembles. I could also talk about Mathieu Dufault, the New York economist that is our candidate in the riding of Hull, so in the Outaouais region. So we have an economic team that is really ready to deliver. We are going to have a balanced financial plan to show where we are going to take the money to fund our promises. But we have also to realize we are at a turning point in Quebec. The climate crisis is an historic fight we need to take seriously, and that will need historic investments. We are going to need the political courage to invest to solve the problems of Quebec. We can do that in a responsible way, and that's what we're going to do.
Okay, moving on to healthcare.
Yep.
Another top issue. The system is broken.
Yep.
And to be fair, CAQ has done nothing. I mean, it's saying we have to modernize, but after 4 years, let's face it, nothing's been done. Even through the pandemic. The pandemic can be an excuse. We could have started 2 years ago, a year ago, 6 months ago. The only announcement we have from the CAQ right now is more bureaucracy, in other levels. Santé Québec. That's all we know so far. What's your solution? Because it's completely broken.
The first problem in our healthcare system is staff. We need more staff.
But labor crisis, does that mean immigration? We don't have enough people.
Staff has been leaving.
Yeah.
Staff have been leaving.
To the private agencies.
To the private agencies and to Ontario in the last years. So the first priority, we could talk about the structures, the organograms, the bureaucracy. The first priority, we get those people back into the public system. How do you do that? With better working conditions. When I go in the hospitals, talk to the staff, no one talks to me about their salary. They talk to me about their quality of life.
Okay, so what would you change?
Well, we need to get rid of private agencies in Quebec. We need to do that with a structured plan over a few years, but we need to get rid of private agencies in Quebec. We need also to get rid of mandatory
overtime.
Mandatory overtime, which is a cancer in terms of the quality of life of people working in our system. We need to make sure we have a ratio of nurses and patients that protects, first of all, the health of the patients, but also the working condition of the nurses. So those solutions have been known for Quebec for years. We know what we need to do. We just need the political courage to say, for example, to private agencies, the open bar is over. you are going to close down, and we are going to get your staff back into the public system.
So that's the only solution.
Well, that's the first priority.
Okay.
Because that's the main problem.
Because
lack of staff. First of all, we need to spend more intelligent. We need to stop wasting money in our public system. And I'm going to give you one example. Quebec is the 3rd place in the world where we spend most on our médicaments, on our medicine. We are sending billions of dollars every year into the pockets of pharmaceuticals companies.
True.
And I repeat, the 3rd place in the world where we send the more money per capita, of course, to pharmaceutical companies. We can do better. We are going to propose Pharma Québec, a public pole of research and production of medicine, especially medicine that is freely available on the market. This will represent an economy of more than $2 billion every year. So that's a $2 billion that you actually save and can invest elsewhere. So it's not only a matter of should we put more money. It's also a matter of do we spend well the money? Are we wasting money? And I think we are wasting money in our system right now. So that's the second example of a reform we're going to do to make sure we spend more intelligently the money that taxpayers are sending to the government.
All right. Gabriel Nadeau-Dubois, leader of Quebec Solidaire, thank you very much for spending all this time with us in studio this morning.
It's a pleasure.
Great conversation. Yep. And I wish you all the best for the campaign.
And I wish everyone to stay tuned to the campaign. It is not over. Everything is still possible. And let's go vote on October 3rd.
All right. Take care.
It's a pleasure.